Before I start discussing the point curve target adjustment tool, I just want to go over, recap, if you will, some of the things from the previous video. So let's just take a look at this just as a little recap here. So when we look at the adjust option across here, when we have all these different options available to us, the first one is the parametric tone curve. And if you take a look at the light panel, you'll see that we have exposure contrast, but then we have highlights, shadows, whites, and blacks. So the difference between working here and working in the curve panel is obviously we have exposure and we have contrast, and they are separate. And then we have highlights, shadows, whites, and blacks. And what this allows us to do down here is to set our white point in our image and set our black point in our image. What that means is we want to set the limits as to how white the brightest area is and how black the darkest area is. And we can actually set them up to exist. Now, the point curve will do similar, but as you notice here, we don't have exposure and contrast. We just have highlights, lights, not whites, darks, and shadows, and not blacks. So this is more of a general kind of a way to work, as opposed to we could actually come in and really make some definite adjustments over there. I'm not saying one is better than the other. Actually, you'll probably find yourself using both of them. The other thing I wanted to point out is when we use the point curve, we can put points in here just like this. Now, these points are not in the best position. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you how you can navigate between this point, that point, and all the other ones. And all you do is tap the plus key to go in one direction or the minus key to go in a different direction. So now, over here, where we want our first quarter tone point set, we want to say that we started off at 64 and we're at 64. This one here should be 128 and 128, and it's not. You can see it's 134. You can see it's higher. So let's go 128. 128 is halfway between 0 and 255. 0 and 255 adds up to a total of 256. Half of 256 is 128. So that's what that point is all about. And the next one, I'm just going to hit the plus sign and say, okay, we're at 193 and 199. I believe it's 192. And I'm just using the tab key to go to the next value here, click my cursor in there and just go up in 192. So now we have these guys set here as points. Now, some people like to have a custom preset that has these guys living where they are. And then what you can do is load that up and then come in and individually move these guys based on your individual image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you can actually save this as a preset, and then we can move forward with that. So down on the bottom where you see point curve and it reads custom, well, we've added some points to that original linear curve. So yes, it's a custom thing. And if I click on that, I can just go to the bottom of this contextual menu and choose save. So now here we go. We have our save dialog box, and by default, untitled point curve. And we can rename this, and I could call this, let's see, why don't I just call it 64, 128, 192. I'll know exactly what that is. And by default, saving this curve as a preset, being saved as an XMP file, which is just a text file telling the software how to behave, whatever. And it's going into the curves folder inside camera raw, inside this, inside that. All right. So I'm just going to click save. And now we have this guy. If I come over here and go linear, And then I come down here, you can see that, oh, I have my custom curve set here. Should load. There you go. And now I'm just going to toggle through all these different things, and I'm going to hold the shift key down, and I'm going to just tap the up arrow key once to increase the brights, and then I'm going to navigate by using the plus key to my shadow one there, and I'm going to hold the shift key down and hit the down arrow once. And now I can save this as, and just give it a name or just use whatever it is. You know what I mean? So I can come in here and name this one 54, 128, because I'm just reading the output values. And I can give this one 202. So I can save that using those. So let's come down here, save that. And I am going to call this one 54-128-202. And again, it's going into here. Now, we can create as many of these as we want. I don't think there's a limit, but I don't think you want to have 100 million of them. But this is how you could go about doing that. Now, if I wanted to start back or get rid of, say I want to get rid of this point curve here, and I only wanted to adjust the shadows. So to get rid of this guy, all I have to do is hold down the Command key on the Mac, Control key on a PC. You can see the cursor now changes to a pair of scissors. That means if I click on that point, I cut it out with a pair of scissors. So now if you want to get rid of all the points that you've put on your curve, let's see, and we put on all these little points here. So we can do this, and we can do this, and we can do this, and go there and do that. So we have all of this kind of stuff. We could click and drag them off individually. We could probably double click on them. We can hold down the Command key and click on them to, but that would take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different clicks. Move your cursor outside of the curve grid, if you will, and then hold down the Option key and then just click on Reset Curve. Quickest way to go about doing it. One last thing I want to mention, if it's not already obvious, that this graph that you see within the grid of the curves panel is your histogram. Okay, so now we're going to deal with the point curve target adjustment tool. Here we go. Click on that. Now, first thing you will notice is in the bottom portion of my image, you're going to see a panel that just showed up. This is a floating panel. And if you don't want it here, we can just click on that little guy to get rid of it. If you want to reposition it, just click and drag to reposition it. The second thing that you're going to notice is inside this panel, we have a little squiggly thing that's a curve. And if we come over here, we have the color mixer. We will deal with the color mixer next. But for now, we need to just work with the point curve guy. So now, if I want to darken my blues, notice that as I move my cursor through the document, my cursor is this little round circle, and then to the lower right, I have a light gray circle. If I move my cursor up into the greens, or even the darker blues, my following circle changes based on where my cursor is flowing and moving. So if I was to click hold there, you can see that in the center, there's a white dot. That's my cursor point. The circle to the right is that light gray that was following along. Now, if I wanted to darken this, and take a look over in my graph, you can see the position of the point that I've actually clicked on in the document. And now if I just move to the left a little bit, you'll see that I'm pulling that curve down and I'm going to the left, and that darkens things. If I go to the right, I can lighten things. I can move my cursor up and down, and depending on how I'm moving it up and down, it'll either go left or right. You can only go left or right with this cursor. There's no point in trying to go up and down. So that's how this works. Now, if you wanted to, you can come in and you can click on the individual color channels and play around it. But like I've said before, I don't think I would want to do that. So now if I come over here and click, you can see now I've set a different point, and I can raise that up or drop her down to get a little bit more control out of that. And then I can come in here and possibly raise this up. That is not a good look. All right. Just going to put that back where it was. All righty then. So I think that's all there is. If you want to see the difference between the before and after, just click on this little eyeball. It's the toggle visibility. That's what our image looked like before we did any adjustments. That's what it looks like with these really, really strong adjustments. I think what I'm going to do is just use the plus key and then move that up a little bit and say, you know, that's not a bad idea. And then take this down to take out that added saturation. When we actually take out this added saturation, it's equivalent to just working in the luminosity component, or it's equivalent to separating the color channel from the black and white image that lies below. All right, so now I'm just going to hold down the reset curves thing and collapse that. Now that I've collapsed the curves panel, it's time to take a look at the color mixer. Color mixer is up next.